Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show, it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 2, Episode 3 of The Boys. A lot of great things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we got the boys on a boat. Obviously, they got Kimiko and her brother. Obviously, that intro was like, okay, it's like a Billy Joel music video, but I was like, what's this pertain to anything? And I like how, I'll go ahead and talk about it. I like what that represents in the episode, because it's a kid who is, about to jump off a bridge, but Billy Joel, like, apparently, I'm not familiar with the song, so I wasn't familiar with the music video either, but like Huey explaining it later on, being like, yeah, this is supposed to be, Billy Joel inspiring someone to kind of have their second wind at it, someone who's about to, I think end it all. It's like giving him a second win, a second chance, And for Huey, his second wind is, Annie. The fact of the matter is, it's this whole thing of like, we did an amazing thing. We've exposed Vought and everything, but even he's like, yeah, this is very dangerous. And like, obviously, if something happened to her, it devastated him. But the fact of the matter is, he's like, you're my second win. Like after losing Robin, he talked about it last season. After losing Robin, it broke him. But he said it last season. You saved me. She's like, how did I save you? She's like, I didn't do anything. I was just there for you. It's like, but being there for someone counts more than a lot of people might account for. Like, just listening, just being there. She was his second win even then, but now I think he's contextualized it to be like, no, I realize now you are my second win. You were my second chance at life, because he was just down that path of revenge, and he kind of let that go because it all changed for him. He wasn't driven by the ghost of Robin anymore like he was for a little bit in season 1. Now he was able to just kind of move on because he cares about Annie a lot, and so I just thought that was how beautiful, like how they tied that in together like that. It's interesting too how he had like him swinging on Butcher, because obviously I literally just talked about it in episode 2, like how it was shitty the way Billy treated him, but then he was like, all right, let my temper get the best of me. I'm sorry, we're good, right? And then he was just kind of smiling, like, is he going to save her? And then he swings on Butcher, and he's trying to attack Butcher, and he's like, and obviously MM is there to kind of calm him down. Because Billy doesn't realize, like, what he's done is messed up or anything. He's just, it's just kind of like, I don't know what the hell is wrong with that kid. And obviously talking to Mallory. And Mallory brought up something interesting where she was basically like, oh, have you ever heard of the hero Liberty? And it's like, no, what's that all about? And Mallory's like, I don't know. I'm like, what? Like, that's such an interesting... It seems like that's a seed they're setting up, like, that's significant in some shape or form. Because, like, why would Mallory bring that up? And it's the only time that gets brought up in the episodes. Like, what's that about? Like, that's got to be, like, a future plot point, obviously. But, what I thought was interesting, though, is, like, well, that super terrorist is Kimiko's brother, so... what are we going to do about it if she gets in your way? And Butcher's like, oh, neutralize her. Frenchie happens to overhear this, and he's like, it's an expression. And, and then Frenchie doesn't believe him. And then Kimiko comes walking down the stairs because I'm assuming she heard, or like, she doesn't trust Butcher because out of anyone, Butcher was the one still going to go after her brother and just his whole thing. I mean, because I think she also resents Butcher too, because it's like, yeah, you kind of left us behind, but also it's like, this is about your family situation. You don't care about mine at all. Much like how Huey felt in season 1, like, oh, you didn't care about me or Robin. This has always been about you and Homelander, your revenge for Becca. So I thought that was an interesting aspect. And obviously Frenchie's trying to talk to Kimiko's brother, but he's not listening to her nor to Frenchie, because Frenchie talks about the fact is what Kimiko does isn't a typical sign language. Apparently Kimiko hasn't spoken since their parents got murdered, and so they created their own form of language. And obviously Frenchie's like, can you teach me? But Kimiko's brother's like, no, fuck you. And he's like, I just want to help her. The fact is that your sister's very special. She loves you very much. But obviously, like, because I think in his mind, it's kind of like he's set on his mission, and it's just like he cares about his sister too, but it's like she's not able to see things probably in his mind. It's like, you're not able to see things the way I do. You're so caught up in all of this. It's like, if I have to go through you, I'll go through you. I don't want to, but I will if I have to. Then there's a whole police copter showing up. Kimiko's brother got free, and he was about to kill Butcher multiple times, but luckily Kimiko stopped him, aimed it at the helicopter crashed. Huey was like, we need to go back, there might be people alive, but Butcher's like, trust me, they're dead. Huey throws out one of those little life preservers, lifesavers thing. And, you know, if anyone's there, maybe they can help. Like, he doesn't know for sure that everyone's dead, but it's just kind of like, damn, more innocent people are dead because of this. It's like, they're just cops doing their job. It's like, because he already feels guilty enough that there's so much blood on his hand, and it's just like more and more as time is going on. So, obviously, Mallory's people can't come to them. It's like, so we got to go to Mallory. At least go to, like, a CIA safe house. And obviously, you know, everything's going to shit at Vought because it's like, oh, word got out about Compound V, and that turned everything upside down. So now Vaught's looked at a certain way, and Edgar's looking for an opportunity to spin this. And he saw from the picture there's the terrorists, and you can tell, okay, so he's going to spin it to be like, oh, there's these super terrorists out there. Feel however you feel about Vought, but we have these heroes, and they're going to save the day. It's interesting, too, because there's that dude who's, like, giving that speech, and basically it's like, I think it's a storyboard for, like, a movie or whatever, but it's, like, done in a comic form, and he's like, oh, the Seven, you reunite. It's so interesting because, like, the Seven logo for that movie or whatever looks exactly like the Superman symbol from Man of Steel. Maybe that's kind of what they're winking and going for. It just aesthetically it looks like that. But obviously Stormfront wasn't too happy about the ideas coming up during that movie. She's laying it down, like, basically being like, oh, the way you write female characters, either they're like bitches or like you write them like Michael Bay does. And she's like, I get it, you masturbated to the Transformers movies. He's like, I have two sisters. I think so. It's supposed to be like, you know, I'm sensitive when it comes to women. I know women. Like, I'm not going to write them in a certain way because I have two sisters and they would never be. I think it's kind of what that's supposed to be. But I think it's so interesting. Like, from that, even that moment kind of showed you, like, no one else said anything until Stormfront. Like, Stormfront was the one that was just kind of like, she's very vocal and just kind of almost large and in charge type of situation. But obviously, this Compound V thing, like I said, shook everything up because in the case of A-Train, he's like, you have no idea what you've done. She's like, it's fine. Like, money and all that, like, it's not as, there are more important things. And A-Train's saying something interesting. He's like, it is, you know who said that? People who grew up with money. And, you know, it's like, because we heard a little bit about their background last season, him and his brother. But I guess it's like, obviously they grew up poor. It's like, so this means a lot for him because it's like, for someone who grew up poor, it's like, it's easy for you to say, who having been okay, you didn't have to struggle, you were always okay and well off. I didn't even talk about it in the first episode, but her mom has been trying to contact her, but she's been avoiding her mom's texts and everything, you know, but I think that kind of hit, you know, her being like, you know, yeah, A-Train got caught up in the celebrity of it and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, people are people, and they all come from different backgrounds. A-Train didn't come from the most privileged background, so the reason why it matters so much to him, because he knows what it's like to live a life without all of that. So it's like, once you've kind of lived that life, you never want to go back. So I think that was kind of something, and I think it's just because A-Train's in that situation doesn't mean there aren't other superheroes who are part of Vought who aren't in the same position as well. Then you have Maeve, and this also answered a question I had last episode, I brought up in the last review. Who knew amongst? It doesn't seem like Black Noir knew because he was breaking down crying in the hallway, so yes, he didn't know. Queen Maeve definitely didn't know because her dad is on TV being like, oh, if someone did this to my daughter, I didn't know. She's like, bullshit, you didn't know. Basically, there was money she was raising from these events, superhero events, Teen Vogue and stuff like that was meant for her braces, but he basically gambled it away. And she's, you know, venting to Elena, and then Homelander shows up, and she's like, I gotta go. It's like, and he's like, I've known you longer than anybody else, so I feel like I can lean on you. And she's like, me too. He's like, really? You feel that way? And just like, you can tell how uneasy she is. And he's like, okay. He's like, oh, you. I was like, is he catching her in a lie? Does he know? And then he's like, she's like, well, he was like, so who's Elena? And she's like, an old friend. He's like, you don't have any friends. It's just like, you know, she's like, I'm just venting about all this BS. And he's like, what BS? And it's like, I love how he spins it like he didn't know about Compound V. Like, it's out there in the open. Like, he's all, like, him and A-Train are the one, it seems like they're the only ones amongst the seven who knows. I'm assuming Stormfront knows too. Once again, just the way things play on the episode, I think I was right about her being Edgar's, like, insider to the Seven. It's like, you can't control Homelander, but it's like, if you can get someone that you trust that will listen to what you say, do what you want, then I think that's kind of, like I said, the role of Stormfront. Like I said, I'm throwing this out there now. We'll kind of have to wait and see on that front, but just like everyone's reactions to all of this. Obviously, the Deep is taking it pretty hard because obviously for him, he's always felt like a freak, especially because he's like, oh, it first developed when he was 9. The fact is, he started hearing all these fishes and like lobster, like wherever he went to, like any aquatic wildlife, he'd be able to hear them, and he thought he was going crazy. And, Ego is like, you're not a freak. He's like, it's easy for you to say all you do is shoot arrows. He's the one that hears fish. He has the gills and everything. He's always felt like a bit like a freak, And then Carol saying like, oh, this is an opportunity for him to get back into 7. And I'm like, okay, so that is what, this isn't about helping. This isn't about helping the Deep. This is about helping yourself. Could they end up bringing up the founder of like the Church of Collective or whatever? Like, it's like he got the information about where the terrace is, and obviously the Deep goes to investigate because the whole point is he's trying to, welcome himself back into the 7. So Edgar's having his whole conversation with the 7 being like, oh, we should do this as a collaborative effort. And then there's the whole thing about Compound V and everything. And he's like, well, it's like he's not Vought, if it's like we're Vought to Vought, we're products, so fuck Vought and everything. So in that moment, Homelander feels like, oh, I got the 7 on my side. Like, oh, you got it twisted. Like, it's his way of getting back at Edgar for talking to him the way he did beforehand. And it's like, this is my way of getting back at you. But it's like, I've got control of the 7. Don't get it twisted, dude. I'm the one in control here. And even in Stormfront being like, fuck Vought. I didn't expect that out of anyone. I didn't expect that from you. He's like, well, that shows that you don't know me. And she's like, I guess I don't. I'd skipped over it, but there's a whole situation with Ryan as well. Obviously, Homelander sitting down, having breakfast with them and everything. And it seemed like the moment it's like, oh, like, Becca's like, oh, like we have like Spanish Monday, so we do, breakfast in Spanish. And it seemed like Homelander didn't like that because it's like, no, you're not going to, make my son into some weirdo nerd. It's like, no, he's a god, he's a superhero, he's going to be the man. Like, it's like, no. All right, enough of this, like, stupid shit. Like, let's get to some real stuff. Has him on the roof and everything. And it's this interesting, it furthermore proves Homelander is very fucked up when it comes to love because of his background. It made him the twisted individual he had. Like, he doesn't understand boundaries and understanding, like, how to interact with people. So he's telling his son, it's like, all right, jump. And he's like, I don't want to jump. He's even saying, Dad, please don't make me jump. He's like, oh. And the only thing he took for that is, you called me Dad. Like, that's so narcissistic he is because it's like, Becca's raising him a certain way. It's like, no. Forget all the stupid ways she's raising you. This is about how I'm raising you because I'm your father. I know what was best for you. It's like you haven't been there in his life. So for him, it's like, I guess he's trying to overcompensate. So he ends up pushing him off the roof. But it's like the thing is like, I mean, because I guess he's under the assumption, like, if you've got powers like me, so anything I can do, you can do. So, it makes sense. I think that's typically how the superhero thing kind of works. So we saw at the end of season 1, he has the heat vision, so why wouldn't he have the invulnerability and ability to fly? But the fact is, you still pushed your son off the roof, and he's like, see? And he's like, look what you're doing. Like, Becca, you're raising our son to be a pussy, and it's just like, obviously, it's like, he's not your son. You don't have the right to raise him and do all that after you did what you did. She's like, and he grabs her arm and he's holding it tight. I gave you a son. And it pisses Ryan off that he pushes Homelander and his heat vision starts activating. He's like, get away from her. Leave. I fucking hate you. And so that's what ultimately makes him leave because it's like, oh, you thought Ryan was going to love you because you're forcing that love. You're not giving him a chance to get to know you and love you. Is it interesting because like Mesmer kind of had a similar thing last season to a certain extent? It's interesting to see this with Homelander, but I think for him, it's like he's so used to people loving him and adoring him that it's almost like he expects his son to, like, oh, I'm your dad, so obviously you're going to love me. It's like, once again, you don't know anything about human interactions. You don't know what it takes to be a parent, to be a father, And as someone who's not a parent, I think I can easily say that just like, you're kind of doing a shitty job at it because you're scaring the shit out of your son. You're threatening his mom and everything, Because obviously Ryan wanted to spend time. It's like, oh, could I go outside with my mom? And she's like, sure. But it's just like he's seen that side of his dad that everyone else sees, that everyone else is afraid of. So But obviously, I thought was kind of interesting too is that we finally got to see the Deep in action. We saw it a little bit last season, but kind of seeing him go full blown. Obviously, he's the Aquaman in this world, but seeing him go full blown Aquaman, the aquatic life attacking the boat, stopping them, so they have to get off. And obviously, the scene we see from the trailer, them ramming into the whale that he stopped, loosely, as the Deep puts it. And everyone else is about to bounce, and then Huey's just kind of, nah, leave me. I'm waiting for my second win, and Butcher's like, all right, come on, but he's like, just get away from me, because he's tired of Butcher shit. It's just kind of like, whatever befalls me, like, because he's hoping that Annie might find him and stuff like that. And even if the others get there, like, I think Huey had kind of given up. It's just like he wanted to see Annie one more time, and it's just like, because no matter what, because I skipped over it, but like Mother's Milk and Frenchie congratulating him. It's like, oh, this is what we've been trying to do, take down VOD. Oh, you did it. You're amazing, Huey. It's like, yeah, no, it wasn't just me. It's Starlight too. But Butcher was just like, oh, good job. He's like, wait, good one. That's it? It's like, no, like, this is all that we've been aiming for. And he's like, a really good one. And it's just kind of like, you want to, he's like, oh, basically, I will get lube and tickle your balls when it's all said and done. Until then, focus and get to work. And it's just like, obviously, they're like, fuck him, Huey, regardless of what he says, you did great. But I think for Huey, it's a thing of he looks for Butcher's praise a little bit, I think. Because he's just like, I feel like this is something he's kind of good at. This is something he did good. We're taking down Vought and everything. And, he didn't get any praise. Like, it's just like nothing. For him, it's like, I can't even have one win. It's like nothing I do is worth anything to you, Butcher. It's just like, I'm just kind of a waste of space. So I think all of that just made you would just be like, fuck you, just leave me alone. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die, And MM was like, I'm not going to leave him behind. It's like, the kid doesn't want anything to do with me, so fuck him. But MM is like, all right, if they're going to come, they're going to come. But if you're not leaving Huey, I'm going to stay too. And Huey's like, oh, you're such an asshole. So they reluctantly go. And obviously MM's talking to Butcher. It's like, that kid is falling apart. It's not just him. This entire group, we're at each other's throat. No matter what we do, we keep pushing and pushing. He's like, yes, and I'm going to push you guys over the finish line. He's like, but we won't make it there. Like, the fact of the matter is, you want to make sure this kid's okay because he's your canary. And he's like, my what? Basically, Huey's his conscience to stop you from going too far. I'd immediately, I think might be the analogy he's going for, because canaries were supposed to be your way. Like, when people were working in a mine, the canaries, it's actually an effed up thing. Like, the canaries would be your way of seeing, like, whether, like, the oxygen's good down there. I think that's how that whole thing worked. I could be mistaken. That's just stuff I've picked up from, like, stories that have kind of used that. But it's like, Huey's your way to know whether you've gone too far, like down the mine, where it's like, oh, you've gone too far off the beaten path, that, oh, there's no air over here. So to make sure you don't go too far, you better make sure that kid's okay. Obviously, the Seven show up, the Deep's there, and he's apologizing to Starlight, and she's like, wait, you think we're going to welcome you back into Seven? She's like, there's no way that's going to happen. Even Stormfront calling him out, because she's like, oh, you're from the Church of Collectives. The fact is, she knew immediately, like, his whole thing, that I'm like, wait, what? How does she know about that? I think that's significant in its own right. Something that clicked in my head, I'm purely throwing this out there, just some random speculation. I'm like, that hero that Mallory saw called Liberty, you don't think that's Stormfront, but she reinvented herself in some shape or form? Or, like, once again, it's just like, what's the significance of that? Like, I feel like, because it don't seem like Stormfront is just your regular hero. It's just, there's something more to her, something to it. Obviously, going through the tunnels and everything, they get a little separated, and Huey's alone and meets up with Starlight, and obviously Starlight attacks him because she knows Homelander's there. And A-Train, Homelander seeing that A-Train's not in his game, because we see this episode, because even Maeve was like, oh, you look like shit. He's just like, I partied too much last night. Like, the effects of using Compound V again to make himself better has fucked up his heart. So using his powers too much takes its huge toll on him. So he can't go for too long without it, like, basically getting ready to explode his heart yet again. Well, it didn't explode before, but it seems like it might end up exploding. But Homelander's there and being like, oh, it's really this kid again? All right, Annie, this time you're going to have to kill him. If you don't kill him, I'll kill you both. And it's like Huey's just kind of accepting it, be like, do what you need to do. Like, as long as she's okay, he's fine with it. Because, like, at the end of the day, what did Huey say in the first episode? I'll sleep better once I know that you're okay, that you're safe. And so she's getting ready to, but then William goes like, hey, it's me, to save Huey's life. And they release Kimiko's brother, and he brings the house down on Homelander and bounces, but Kimiko follows after him. Stormfront is on them, and I thought this was interesting. She's attacking them and everything, and then like just casually that dad's there, and then Stormfront kills him. I'm like, why are you even doing that? Is that because she already knew the narrative that she was going to create? Did Edgar tell her to create a certain narrative from the beginning? Because I'm like, you literally went out. It's not like it was accidental. You just went out of your way, just kind of being like, and then you killed the rest of his family because it's like, well, can't have any witnesses saying that I killed these people. And so she just what did Edgar say? There's going to be like 34% collateral damage, and you're just like ripping through the building going after the two of them. Obviously, neither one of them is going down easy. Killing Kimiko is not going to be an easy thing, because as we can tell, she has her healing factor of some sort. We don't know the full extent of it, but the fact of the matter is they keep going, and eventually Stormfront catches up with them, and she's about ready to kill Kimiko, but her brother came back for her, and Stormfront breaks his hands, and then she snaps his neck. I was so sure she was going to rip his head off, but then she, once again, showing you how diabolical she is, she's like, oh, open your eyes. I love seeing the light leave your eyes. I was like, holy shit. On top of being a scary, shitty person, she's also racist, because she was like, you fucking yellow bastard. I was like, whoa. I mean, you being a shitty human being, racism kind of falls under all just what you're doing, but it's just like, the fact is, it's just kind of an added oomph that she said that, like, oh, you're racist too, okay. And it's just kind of like, woo. And Homelander's like, I told you that was mine. And she's like, you snooze, you lose, Gramps. And then at the meeting and everything, once again, further proving my point, like at that conference, like Stormfront is standing right beside Edgar, and it's like, oh yeah, this is all thanks to our newer hero. And then Stormfront turns around and like, oh, it's because of all the people behind us. And she's looking at Homelander, she's smiling, and Homelander does, once again, he's a boy, like he's like a child in the sense that he's just like, how dare you show me he's looking so pissed, and she's just gloating in front of him. It's like, I think she's supposed to be his replacement to a certain extent. It's like she's playing with fire, and the reason I'm wondering why. So obviously they want to, Edgar's spinning this, but being like, it's a small fraction of Vault that was involved in this. I had no idea what was going on. This was all Madeline Stillwell's idea. So Vault is able to kind of spin this, especially with this terrorist. It's like, oh, we've been fighting terrorists overseas, but now they're here in America. And oh, look at all this destruction, all those people that died. Could have been so much worse if it wasn't for Stormfront. It's like, it sucks, and obviously Annie is like, all that hard work she went into doing this, and it amounted to nothing because Vought was able to kind of, it's going to, weather this storm and come out on top and okay, especially because once again, you see this in the trailer that they're able to kind of like fearmonger a lot of the country to like, who cares about what Vaught's doing? Like they're the superheroes. They got the superheroes leaning into, like, because obviously what did Edgar say? We're not the superhero business. We're in the pharmaceutical business. But he's able to spin it to be like, oh, we're in the superhero business. We have our superheroes and they're here to save the day. So that's kind of interesting, kind of going against his words because it benefits him in this particular situation. But obviously we see the boys, like obviously the victory, like you see Butcher put away all those descriptions of where Becca is, because he figured, I'm not going to be getting to her anytime soon because Kimiko's brother is dead. I have nothing to give to Mallory for her to help me. It's just everything went wrong, especially because Mallory kept being like, Butcher, don't fuck this up. How I know? Because you're going to fuck this up. But even at the end, she was like, please be careful, because she knew this shit could go sideways, and obviously it went sideways. But then like we do see that it seems like Huey and Butcher's relationship is getting repaired, because Huey's looking at him like, you didn't have to do what you did. You came back, you helped me, so like I do matter, It's like, I think for him it's just like he was pissed off because he felt like none of them mattered. That he in particular didn't matter to Butcher, that he was just a pawn, a piece to be left behind. But it's like, you came back for me, so you do care about me, so we are friends type of thing. But obviously Kimiko's focused on Stormfront, and I can tell ahead of time, I think Kimiko's going to learn to speak, and she's going to say it to Stormfront when she kills her. I know it being like, look me, open your eyes. I like seeing because she was there, she heard everything, she saw what you did to her brother. She's dead set on revenge. So it's going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, blow light to the force, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.